Winter in Canada does not arrive as a season so much as a system. It settles in with routines, expectations, and a quiet confidence that surprises many Americans encountering it for the first time. Snow is not treated as an interruption or an emergency. It is simply the background condition against which daily life continues. Streets narrow, light softens, and the rhythm of cities adjusts without much announcement. For Americans accustomed to winter as a temporary disruption, this calm acceptance can feel unsettling. The first impressions tend to form early in the morning. Darkness lingers longer, even as cities wake up on schedule. Sidewalks are cleared efficiently, but not obsessively. People move with steady purpose, layered in functional clothing rather than dramatic winter gear. There is little visible frustration in the cold air. Cafes open on time, buses run as expected, and offices fill despite temperatures that would shut down entire regions further south. The atmosphere feels muted yet controlled, as if the season has been quietly negotiated rather than fought. What often stands out most is not the cold itself, but the lack of urgency around it. In many parts of the United States, winter storms prompt warnings, cancellations, and a sense of collective pause. In Canada, winter is integrated into planning from the beginning. Buildings are designed to retain heat, vehicles are prepared months in advance, and social schedules assume snow as a constant presence. This creates a psychological shift where discomfort is anticipated rather than dramatized. Social behavior adjusts in subtle ways. Conversations slow, voices soften, and public spaces become more inward-focused. People spend less time lingering outdoors and more time transitioning between warm interiors. Yet this does not translate into isolation. Instead, gatherings become more deliberate. Invitations feel intentional, and time spent together indoors carries added weight. Americans sometimes interpret this reserve as emotional distance, when it is more accurately a seasonal recalibration. Daily habits reinforce this mindset. Grocery shopping is done with foresight rather than impulse. Commutes are approached with patience rather than urgency. Even leisure adapts to the climate, with winter sports and outdoor walks treated as normal extensions of life rather than extreme activities. The cold is acknowledged, but rarely complained about openly. Endurance is valued quietly, without performance. Over time, this winter lifestyle reveals itself not as a test of toughness, but as an expression of cultural stability. The season shapes expectations, behavior, and emotional tone, encouraging preparation over reaction and calm over resistance. For many Americans, the shock lies not in how cold Canada becomes, but in how little the cold seems to matter. This calm relationship with winter is reinforced by how early it begins to shape the year. Long before the first snowfall, routines are adjusted. Tires are changed without debate, clothing shifts toward practicality, and mental expectations lower in volume rather than in optimism. For many Americans, winter preparation is reactive, triggered by forecasts and headlines. In Canada, it is anticipatory, almost procedural, which removes much of the emotional charge surrounding cold weather. Public spaces reflect this adaptation. Underground walkways, enclosed transit stations, and connected buildings create invisible networks that allow life to continue without constant exposure to the elements. These systems are rarely discussed, yet they subtly redefine how distance and effort are perceived. A walk that would feel hostile in open air becomes manageable through layered infrastructure. Americans often notice how little drama surrounds these accommodations, as if they were never designed for convenience, but for continuity. Work culture follows the same logic. Snowstorms do not automatically excuse lateness, nor do they create shared moments of crisis. Employers and employees operate under the assumption that winter will interfere, and so flexibility is embedded quietly rather than negotiated loudly. Remote work, staggered schedules, and unspoken patience coexist without formal acknowledgement. This contrasts sharply with the American tendency to frame weather as an external adversary that temporarily suspends normal expectations. Emotionally, the season encourages restraint. Expressiveness gives way to steadiness. Complaints are rare, not because conditions are easy, but because they are expected. The cold becomes a neutral fact rather than a personal inconvenience. For Americans accustomed to narrating hardship openly, this restraint can feel emotionally distant, even stoic. Yet beneath it lies a shared understanding that endurance does not require constant affirmation. Community life subtly reorganizes around this endurance. Winter festivals, outdoor skating rinks, and seasonal rituals provide structure without spectacle. They are not framed as escapes from winter, but as acknowledgments of it. Participation feels optional, yet culturally assumed. Americans often expect winter enjoyment to compensate for discomfort, while Canadians tend to treat it as coexistence rather than compensation. Weeks of cold stretch into months, time itself feels altered. Days blur, light becomes precious, and progress is measured less by speed than by consistency. This slower, steadier pace can feel constraining to those used to seasonal variation, creating momentum. Yet it also produces a sense of reliability. Life does not pause waiting for better conditions. It continues within them, quietly adjusted, patiently maintained. Over time, this prolonged coexistence with winter shapes a distinct understanding of resilience. Endurance is not framed as heroism. It is embedded into daily routines. The season requires neither constant motivation nor emotional highs, only steady consistency. Many Americans notice that emotional peaks and valleys soften, replaced by a calmer baseline. Work continues, relationships persist, daily habits endure, even as the external world remains harsh and unchanging. Homes take on a deeper significance in this environment. Interiors are crafted not merely for shelter, but for psychological comfort. Lighting is softer, spaces are arranged for warmth and ease, and evenings revolve around quiet rituals that subtly preserve energy. This inward focus is not retreat, but a seasonal recalibration. Americans often interpret this attention to home life as isolation, when it is actually a conscious redistribution of energy to sustain life through months of cold. The difference is most striking in attitudes toward inconvenience. Lost sunlight, heavy clothing, and limited spontaneity are rarely lamented. They are simply accepted as part of the larger seasonal cycle. Life is not paused waiting for winter to end. It continues, adapted and predictable. Satisfaction emerges from continuity rather than anticipation, and progress is measured in quiet persistence rather than bursts of activity. This approach cultivates a unique emotional climate. Patience becomes habitual, irritation loses urgency, and even silence feels natural. For Americans accustomed to vocalizing discomfort as a means of processing hardship, this quiet endurance can feel alien, even disorienting. Yet beneath the stoicism lies a shared cultural trust in preparation, systems, and collective understanding. Challenges are acknowledged without dramatization, reinforcing stability over spectacle. By the time spring finally arrives, its impact is subtle rather than dramatic. Appreciation replaces relief, but the transition is measured and calm. Winter has been endured, not battled. For many Americans, the true surprise of Canada's winter lifestyle is not the cold itself, but the way it quietly instills patience, foresight, and emotional steadiness. In this world, survival is neither celebrated nor mourned. It is simply assumed, integrated seamlessly into daily life, as naturally as the snow that once blanketed the streets.